So today we're going to tell you like how to fund your program. So there's a lot of money that's out there to be able to fund your program. My whole deal is going out and getting money for different agencies. I do it for police and fire departments. When a government across the country, not just in Michigan, not just Detroit, not just anywhere, all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast, when they get into trouble and they have money problems and they're worried about how they're going to fund a fire service, a police service, or anything like that, they give me a call. And I don't advertise. It's just I think it's all the work that I did in Detroit to be able to make sure that they were whole, that all these other government agencies start connecting the dots, and then they bring me in to raise funds for them. So when I get into all these things, things to raise money, I do also nonprofits, and I raise money for nonprofits all the time. And I go in, nonprofit starts to have financial issues, or they want to keep ahead of the game, and they bring me in to raise funds for them. So I do it in a whole bunch of different ways. And so the one thing that I want to tell you guys is that we're looking at things wrong. So when I was telling you earlier about your advisory boards, we always stack it up with firefighters, and that's great because they're going to be the ones that look over our books and look over our, to make sure that we're using the right books and we're training the right stuff and all that. Great, that's awesome. But I want to tell you something. When you guys go back today, or when you go back on Monday, you should start stacking the deck with advisory people that have weight. And what I mean by weight is financial weight. So like if you have people on your board, on your advisory board that are from industry or the Fortune 500, all of them, most of them have foundations where they have to spend money. So when you go in there, don't be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to ask. When you go in to talk to people and you say, hey, I've got this program, it's the greatest program in the world, and we're going to train these firefighters. I don't care how your political views are. I don't care about any of that stuff. Everybody wants to get behind everybody working, right, and doing good in the community and doing the best that they can for themselves. We all agree on that? We definitely will. So when we go in to do things, some of the things that I've been charged with raising money is I would go in and I worked for in Ottaway, Michigan. It was called Moran Iron Works and Industrial Arts Institute. I worked for them for a long time, and I raised money for them. So it's a little welding school in Ottaway, Michigan. They have 20 in one cohort in January and another 20 in the September class. And so I was able to raise money for them, so a lot. And I would do really well for them, and nobody even knew where this place was at, never even knew the welding school was there or anything. So I would call people up and I would just cold call. It's crazy because you think oh my God, I could never ask anybody for money for this or that. So one of the things that happened with that working for that Industrial Arts Institute is I called somebody. There was a company in Michigan, and they wound up selling out for $1 billion, $1 billion. And so I called them up and I said, I would really like to have some of your money. And they said, well, why would you like to have our money? And I told them, I explained the story. It's not me personally. It's for that organization. As I explained to them, what we were going to do, boom, we're going to be able to get people in. We're going to give them a career path. They're going to be able to make a living doing all these different things of welding. And so we talked, and they go, look, we've already given away our money for the year. We've already given, I don't remember how much money it was, but they'd already promised it out to everybody. So we talk on the phone, and we talk for a little. I never met him in person, never. It was just all cold. It was just a telephone call. And so I kept talking to them, and they said at the end of the conversation, they said, oh my goodness, after, you can feel the passion for everything I do. So they said, oh my goodness, we have to give you money. And they go, how much money do you want? Well, at the time we were doing a $300,000 project. And I said, well, we need, X number of $1 million for whatever it is. But what we really need is we're working on a project right now that costs $300,000. And so by the end of the conversation, they did not want to give us money. But by the end of the conversation, they said, now listen, Cary, do you think that if I gave you 150 this year and 150 next year, you think that'd be a big deal? I'm like, no, I think that'd be great. So they gave us some money. And so going back to Safety City, I was writing grants already before Safety City got there. But then when it came to fundraising, I was working at the, trying to develop the Safety City program, $1 million to $1.5 million, depending on how you look at it. And there was no money there. Like, our fire department doesn't have the money. You know, the hospital didn't want to put the money in. Nobody wanted to do it. So I just started going, and I'm like, well, $1.5 million isn't that much, right? I mean, it is to me in my personal life, but if I'm given money, $1.5 million is not that much money. So I figured, well, you know, at the time it was a financial, you know, difficulty, a low swing in the financial tide of the United States. And so I figured, well, if we're not going to get that one swing of the axe at it, we're going to take little mini swings. And so I'd go to companies. I went to 54 different companies, and I asked them for money. I asked them, look, man, we're going to do this training program. We're going to be able to train kids. We're going to keep them safe from fire injury and medical, you know, all different types of things, traumas, medicals, fire, all that. And who wouldn't want their name on that? So the thing is the story you're telling is the greatest story in America, right? Like, who would not want to help a firefighter out? Who would not want to help out your program? You guys got the greatest, you're the most benevolent people in the whole United States. You're out just doing good just because that's your heart. So that's your story. So you got to tell the story. You got to go out to people and tell them your story. And everybody jumped on board. 54 companies, not one of them told me no. We got the whole thing done just on donations. We got down to the end. We get ready to open up Safety City. Guess what happens? Who closes it down? Our fire marshal. We didn't have an alarm signaling device in Safety City for the, you know, if a fire happened in there, which it was great. Like, the fire marshal should have shut that down. So I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'd already beat the bush on everybody that was out there to try to get money from them. So we had a company come in, and I won't say which one they were because they didn't want me to, but the guy goes, what's wrong, Cary? And I go, man, here we are. We got all this stuff. We built all these, you know, building. We did all this stuff, and we're at the end now, and we can't get this thing open because we don't have an alarm signaling device. And he goes, Cary, he says, I seen how much, you know, you guys are working, doing all this stuff. He says, I'm going to write you out a check. He goes, how much do you think it's going to cost to do the signaling device for this? I said, as far as I know, it's going to be $25,000. And he got his own personal checkbook out and wrote me a check for $25,000. So just crazy. Don't be afraid. Like, you know, the way things, like, it always amazes me, like, when we're talking about raising money for organizations like this, is people are so afraid to go out there and ask. But the thing is, you'll run into a collapsing, burning building, and you're not afraid of that, but you're afraid to ask people for money. Like, come on, man, it's just crazy. So we're in there, so they start doing, like, it was the first program in Michigan, you know, we're doing this injury prevention program. They put it on the news. They do all the things they can to make sure that, you know, the word gets out about the program. So they had me, I was on just a real short snippet, like 10, 15 seconds of a news item. So I'm standing out, you know, I'm still working as a firefighter, and so I'm standing out washing the fire truck, and this car pulls in, you know, kind of pulls in fast, and so I'm like looking, seeing what's going on. One is I'm worried about, like, if somebody's out there to hurt me or something, you know, and so then this lady gets out of the car, and she goes, are you Cary Thompson? Are you the guy that was on the news? And I go, for what? And she goes, oh, Safety City. I go, oh, yeah. And so she gets out of the car, and she comes up to me, and she goes, I just want to know how much it's going to cost to operate Safety City USA for a year. And I said, well, you know, we're donating our time, we're doing all this stuff, and so I think, you know, we're going to need, like, administration, people to book the classes, all that stuff. So I figure it's going to cost about $100,000 a year to be able to operate that. And she goes, I want to fund Safety City USA for 3 years. So she gets out her checkbook and she says, I want you to know that this money's not coming from my corporation. It's coming from me personally, because I strongly believe in what you're doing. So she writes out a check for $300,000. Well, at the time, we didn't have a bank account for Safety City, so she writes it out in my name. I have to be the most honest person in the world, or she really trusted me to do that, you know, and I knew that she knew the money was going to go to the right place. So she's a real sweet lady. Her company furnished videos and DVDs and stuff to, like, all these big corporations across the United States, and they made a lot of money. So she asked me, you know, at the thing, everybody would tell them, like, what they wanted, and I'm real quiet. All I want to get is this thing built. I just want to get out there and do good. And so she goes, everybody's telling me what they want. She said, but listen, when you're talking to me, you never tell me what you want. She said, we're going to have a grand opening party. I'm going to fund the grand opening party. We're going to do all these things. She said, what do you like? And I go, I really like milkshakes. I mean, I really like them. I like malts and milkshakes a lot. And so she goes, where's a good one at? I said, I had a really good one in Niagara Falls, and I had another really good one in Colorado. And so on the grand opening party for the Safety City USA, she calls the company up in Colorado and has them fly out to Michigan to have our grand opening party and make these shakes that I really liked and stuff. So like, man alive, like, that's money. Like, you know, like we don't even think like that. You know what I mean? It's just crazy that they would think like that. But that's the thing is when you get in there and ask, what can they say? Right? Nobody's going to beat you in the head with a bat. Nobody's going to beat you up over asking for money. Nobody's going to do that. So just get out there and ask. Ask as much as you can, and get people on your board. Like one of the things, you know, like Jason was going to build a place in Jackson, and so the first thing that I told you was what, Jason? I'm going to share it with him today. Get yourself a 501c3. Even if you're in a school and you guys are considered to be nonprofit, when it comes down to raising funds, you have to have a 501c3 because that's how they get their tax benefit. If I give you money, I got to get a tax benefit for it. I'm going to get the PR on the one side and the advertising, but I've got to have a way to be able to get that. I have to be able to get a way to get that tax benefit out of it, right? So you form a 501c3. For us, ours is William D. Ford Technical Career Center. So it could be the Friends of William D. Ford. And so we could do that. Anybody, anywhere, anytime can form a 501c3 to support your organization or you. But here's a caveat. You don't want to be butting heads with people all the time over like whatever your information is. You don't want to be butting heads. So you want to kind of get people on the board that are favorable to your organization and favorable to what you're doing. So get that board stacked with people that have financial clout, and then have them stacked with people that believe in what your mission is. And so you'll be surprised on what you can do. When you're in there and you start to tell them, like, get yourself a plan. In the fundraising world, like, it's not only like fire and police departments and governments and that they call me in to help them out, but it's nonprofits. And I always tell them this one thing is when we get in there, and if you call me when you need money, you are already too late, right? Because I got a 90-day window, a 6-month window, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm looking 5 years out on things. I'm looking 90 days out mostly, but I'm looking like 5 years out on where I can get funding for to make sure I can get it. So I always have them give me a list of like the things that are really the most important to them, and then the things that are secondarily important to them, bless you. And then the things that are the third most things that are more important to them. And so then I just look on the list and I try to cherry pick whichever one's out there that I think I can get funding for at that time. In the school, we always have needs, right? Does everybody have everything that they want at their school right now? Everybody? Nobody? No, we don't either. And the thing is that there's always a need for money. So what I would do is if that, you know, like Jackson, Michigan, Detroit's got one now. A lot of other people have, you know, fire department, charity fundraisers where they have like dances and, you know, all this stuff. Man, get them behind your program. Get them giving you money. Tell them, hey, look, you know, they think because it's a school or whatever it is that you have all this money that's just flowing in. They don't realize that most CTE programs in the country are struggling. There's a lot of things that they need to be able to make sure that the CTE program functions. And fire and EMS, everything is expensive, right? There's nothing that's cheap in this realm. There's nothing. You know, we start putting turnout gear on somebody. You know, we're looking at $3,000. Put an SCBA on their back. We're looking at another $7,000 per person. You know, we're looking at $10,000 to $11,000 per person. And so in ours we have 30 people in our class. That's, you know, $330,000 one swoop. And then we got other things we got to get. You know, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So it could add up to millions of dollars, millions. So when your whole school, you know, like for ours, we have like 1,000 students at our whole high school. So we get like $1 million a year to fund. We have 17 different programs. So we get $1 million to fund all 17 programs. That is not enough. It's just not enough. So you got to get out there and start raising money on your own. And once you do it and you start forming a board and you get that board like organized, charge somebody on your advisory board with being your fundraiser, like, hey, if I go and ask you for it, they think, it's a little it's a little personal, like you're asking and you need, but if I have somebody on my board asking for the money and going out there and doing things to do fundraisers and asking fire departments to support us, do all these things, well, that's even better, right? Because they're kind of like one step removed, but they're able to get in there and help you raise the money, and that's a really good thing. So with all this stuff, the one thing I want to kind of encourage you is don't be afraid. Like you're not afraid of the most dangerous set of circumstances in the whole world. Don't be afraid of raising money. It's the easiest thing in the world. I never would have thought I was your guy for that. I just never would have thought I was your guy for it. But just because of my work with the city of Detroit and all these different things of raising money and just working with all the different people that are inside the city of Detroit that are, there's a bunch of Fortune 500 companies that got behind the city of Detroit in the bankruptcy. And so I got to be friends with them, and I would talk to them, and I would tell them stuff about Detroit, about, oh my goodness, they really need they need fire trucks, they need this, they need, over and over again, they have all these needs, and they go, the people would say, like, who wouldn't want to get behind the Detroit Fire Department? Who wouldn't? But they said, I go, why haven't you done it before now? And they said, nobody asked. Isn't it crazy? Nobody asked. So they're waiting for you to come ask them. So go ask them. And if you got something, get a target, like whatever you need for your program, if it's thermal imaging camera, if it's SCBA or anything like that, go and get a target. And whatever the dollar figure is, figure out what the maximum amount of that dollar figure is, and then go on the attack for that. Don't try to fund your whole program. If it's going to take $3 million worth of equipment, a lot of places don't have $3 million, but they might have 50, or they might have less. And so you start adding those things together, and it adds up to be a lot of money. So start piecemealing it if you can. And this year, make a target of, hey, I'm going to get thermal imaging cameras. Next year, I'm going to do something else, and then start raising the funds for it. And you're going to be surprised on how much support you have for that. One of the things that Jason did come out to my program, and when we did the car extrication that I showed you guys earlier for the other program, so we were doing that, but that was a bigger day than that. That vehicle extrication was a highlight, right? What happened is when, I always have to laugh about it, when I started to do Safety City, if I had $1 for every guy that in the fire service or anywhere else that told me you're never going to be able to get this done, I wouldn't be a millionaire. I think I'd be a trillionaire, because it was just so everybody would tell me no. One of the things that happened through through Jason and my friendship is we started talking about like regionalized training centers for, high school people, high school students. And so when I started saying that's what I want, I want to fund it out. I'm not going to go through school funds. I'm not going to fund it through school funds. I'm going to fund it outside of here. And everybody like, yeah, right. They would just kind of roll their eyes and smile like, you're never going to be able to fund this outside of the high school program. So I just kept pushing the issue. Hey, man, we really need this regionalized training thing. Yeah, the college is letting us use their facility, but we really need our own. We need our own facility to be able to train the students on so that they can be ready-made and go out there and do it. So I'm very pleased to announce that we got grant funding from the federal government for a $3 million facility, and we're going to break ground on it starting here in August, and that's just pretty amazing. So just a really big thing. So we're going to go from there, and we're going to go. It's on the beginning part, it's $3 million, but it's going to expand out to even more millions of dollars for our own training facility here. So if I can do it, you can do it. Our program, when we came back, I told you I started it 14 years ago. I was gone for 4 or so years. And when we came back, our program was on a death knell, right? It was circling the drain. It was it was going to go away. They had the paperwork on the principal's desk, and then the school board's line item was to cancel fire and EMS training at William B. Forder in the Wayne Westland School District, right? Who wants to see that? Nobody wants to see that. So going from in 4 years to having 4 students in fire and 9 in EMT when we came back, and then having our programs full. Next year, this coming up year, we have a 90-person waiting list to get into our programs. 90%. Isn't that incredible, man? It's just incredible. And the reason why is because one is the school district we've got a great superintendent, we've got a great principal, we got a lot of things, but we're able to get out there and sell the story. You got to tell your story. One of the greatest things I ever saw in anything, any video or movie or anything like that is on the Wolf of Wall Street, is when they come in and they hand you a pen and say, sell me this pen in 5 minutes, or a minute, whatever it takes. I'm going to give you 5 full minutes to sell your program, but if in Wolf of Wall Street it was a minute, sell me this pen in a minute. If you can't sell your program in a minute, if you can't tell the benefits of why your program is the greatest and why your students are the greatest and why that's going to make a big difference in the world, go back and think about it, because you really need to be able to sell that story. If somebody comes up and they're a potential funder and they come up to talk to you about like your program and you can't sell it, why would they give you money? Why would they give you money? So you got to be able to sell your program. And the thing is you don't have to be a salesman. I'm not a salesman. What I am is I just tell it like it is. I tell it, if I make you a promise, I keep it. Just like old school on the playground. I make you a promise, I keep it. And that's what really sells well in this fundraising thing and raising money for different organizations. I make you a promise and I keep it. Because a lot of times when people get money, they don't keep their promises. They'll use the money for other things or do different stuff like that, and it causes a lot of problems. So as far as grant writing and all that stuff goes, that's fundraising. That's just going out and asking for money. Form your 501c3, and when you're forming your 501c3, do not use an attorney. You can use them. They're very expensive. It's a minimum of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, but you can file your paperwork just using the IRS website. They've got a request to fill out a 501c3. It's the easiest thing to do. You could fill it out, have an attorney look at it to make sure you're not making any mistakes, but go on the website and fill that out, and anybody can do it. So you get somebody that's favorable to your program, have them fill out a Friends of Your Program 501c3, and then after you do that, go out and start, raising your money. The one caveat on a 501c3 is it's management heavy, right? So when you start raising money, you have to have a good accounting procedure. You have to have good, administration. You have to have good stuff like that, because that's where a lot of places get into trouble. So there's a lot of accounting firms and different things that are out there that'll do pro bono work for you. You're the most benevolent people in the whole United States. People are going to do pro bono work for you. They're going to do things for free just to help you out, to make sure that you are able to be successful. Right now, in the state of Michigan, we started a program. My very, very, very good friend, Jeff Brozitz, he's a Madison Heights firefighter. He was a captain for the Madison Heights Fire Department, right next to me. Very first day he's on the job, he comes in and me and him fight a fire on the expressway, and we got to be friends. So we had this over 20-year friendship. And so I'm working at my very, let's see how long it was I was a captain. And so it was the first time that I was ever in charge of the whole city. And so Madison Heights calls over and they go, hey, Cary, we're really in dire straits here. We need an ambulance to come cover our station. I go, I got orders from my chief. I can't send an ambulance or a fire truck over to cover your city. We just don't cover, other cities. We'll come respond there, but we just can't send a vehicle over there to sit. And they go, oh, we had a fatality. And I go, a fatality of a civilian or a firefighter? And they go, of a firefighter. I don't even ask who it is. I go, you got everything I got. If I'm the last man standing in this building, you got everything I got. So we send everything over there. I have no idea that it's my best friend. And so when we go over there, I send all our people over. This is in the middle of the night, 7 o'clock in the morning. His wife calls me and goes, oh my God, did you know that Jeff died? And I go, oh my God, no. I knew that somebody died in Madison Heights, but I had no idea it was Jeff. And I didn't ask. It wasn't my place to ask. And so Jeff had died. He tried to get out to the truck. Very physical, in shape, really muscular guy. Worked out all the time, did everything, but he had a heart attack and died. So out of that, we started a nonprofit, and it's called the Jeffrey Brozitz Healthy Heart Foundation. And so we started raising money to go around, and we're going to try to do, in the state of Michigan, we're trying to go around to every single fire station, or at least the region of where everybody in the region can come to get a calcium scoring scale. And so we're raising money for that, and we're doing all that stuff. So from nothing, the foundation had zero, and we're going to go in and raise this money for people to come in and get this calcium scoring scale. And I just think it's a great thing. So anything that's a big thing for your organization, you have something like that, start raising the money and having that 501c3. if in your fire department or in your school or anything like that, even if somebody died, you would have no way of collecting the money unless you had that 501c3. So it's just a really good thing to do, so you can take care of issues that come up and stuff as far as all that goes. So we're really thankful about that. I'm going to show you some of the stuff in here. One of the biggest things when we come down to, I don't know what that is. That's the other way. This is my contact information. So I want to make sure you guys have that. I'm on, on Facebook and all those other things too, if you guys ever want to contact me. But here's my main information. I had all these business cards and stuff printed up for you, and I'll bring them tomorrow. But I just want to make sure you guys had that information as far as how that goes. So the big thing when you come down to school funding is you have to have Perkins funds, and that's the biggest thing as all this stuff is. Perkins funding is the biggest thing in the world. So everybody goes, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that with Perkins funds? Why don't we do these different things? Well, Perkins funds are out there they've been established to take care of your CTE program, but they're not limitless, right? So when your administrator comes in and says, I'd really like to do this for you, but I just don't have the money, and they think, well, because of the Perkins funds, they think, oh my gosh, they should have every dollar in the world, but they don't. It gets spread out. The money comes to the state, and it gets spread out to the different school districts, and then our school district, we have to spread that money out between 17 different programs. So it's not just a limitless supply of money. You have to really look at that. So this is the primary money for CTE programs, is to be able to get your stuff. So what that Perkins fund can pay for is administrators, CTE director, parapros. They can pay for a lot of different things to be able to help your programs out, but it has to be used a specific way so that it can't, there cannot be any issues. Are you guys familiar with Perkins funding? Everybody is. Everybody in this room should be pretty familiar with it. So even things like coming to this, this symposium, that's an eligible expense. There's a lot of different things that are eligible to be able to use the funding for. So continuing education, a whole lot of stuff it can be used for, but it can't be used for just anything. It's got to be used for exactly what the Perkins funds set out for. So it's a great thing because not every kid is going to go to college. Not every kid's going to do all these things. They're going to have all these different things that they need to do. When I got out of high school, they discouraged you from going into CTE programs, right? Does anybody remember that in your lifetime? They never wanted you to go in it. They always would call it college and career ready. Well, what did that do? A bunch of people went to college, and then there's no jobs for them at the end, right? At the end, when they got through with it, and there was this glut of no people going into CTE programs, and so there was a lack of plumbers, construction, all these things. So they established this fund so that it would increase the vocational training in the United States, and it's a really good thing. It really helped out a lot. So it's just one of the things is that when you look at it, if you ever want to learn, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, can an independent program apply for Perkins funds if you're not?
It has to be a secondary or post-secondary training program. It's that even like that welding school that we had up there. We took care of high school students, but we were not eligible for any of the Perkins funding. But now, if the school that we were combining or partnering with for the kids to get their welding certifications and stuff, if they had the program as part of their education and they could get the Perkins funding for that, then it was acceptable. But we could not get it by ourselves. So I tell you, yeah. It'd be nice. So it's just one of those things. While I'm going through, if anybody has any questions, please just raise your hand. So I'm pretty informal. So if you ever want to learn about what the Perkins funding comes down to, and I know there's probably a lot smarter people in the room than me as far as that goes, but it's based on a formula, and it's based on the population and the socioeconomic groups and a lot of different other things, and there's an exact formula that's out there. And so when your administrator comes and tells you we just don't have that money, they're not lying to you. There's just not enough. So one of our programs at school this year, they have to have brand new computers, and I think it was $100,000 or something like that. So that's a big chip out of that money, and so there's just not a lot left out there. So what I do is myself personally, is since I write grants for all these different fire departments, and I'm going to ask any of you guys that are in here that are in, men or women that are in the fire service, when I write the grants, at the end of the grant, when you get the award, whatever we ask to replace, you can't sell. So it's got to either go to be destroyed, or you have to give it away to a cadet program or a training academy. And so a lot of people, they were just getting rid of this equipment. They were just destroying it or throwing it in the garbage or doing anything like that when there's a whole bunch of CTE programs across the country that can use that equipment. So when you get in there, like every Friday during the grant season, they'll award a new grant to a different fire department. Well, as soon as if you're like me, you'll read that list over and you'll figure out what they got their grant for, and just call them up and say, hey man, you got that grant for SCBAs. What are you doing with your old ones? Can we have them? And I don't even give them a pause in there. It's like, what are you doing with your old ones? Can we have them? And so they always give them to us. Well, we're more than willing to spread those out. We ask for everything, and we don't get it from our school, but we do get it from the donations that we get in there. And so I'm always watching the list, seeing who's getting awarded what, and then I just go in and ask them, can I get this from you? And they always give it to us because they don't have any other way of disposing of it. So it's just a good thing for them to get to. So if you don't do anything else, if you don't take anything else out of my lecture at all today, make sure you go in there and tell them, do that one thing and get the equipment and things that you need. If you're a fire department and you have stuff, please don't throw it in the garbage. There's too many people that are struggling out there that need everything that you got. EMS and fire. So around us, they have. Did anybody ever know that EMS equipment it's got a lifespan? Right? It's got a lifespan, so it expires. So what fire departments and EMS agencies around us were doing is when that would expire, they would just chuck it in the garbage. And oh my goodness, that's like gold for us. We need that. Some of the things that they get, you get some of the items, $85, $100, $200, $500, and they're just throwing it into the garbage. So when you get back to your community, like everybody in your region, start sending out letters telling them, hey, we're training, future cadets to become fire and EMS. And if you have any equipment that expires, any medical supplies or anything like that expires, we are certainly not going to use it on a patient. We're not going to use expired medical supplies on a patient. But I can learn the skill by using that, and it's not going to hurt anything. So just start reaching out to people and seeing if you can do that. So again, when you need it, don't wait till you need it. Start reaching out now and making sure that you start getting that equipment in there, because it's a really big thing. I focused on a lot of stuff on the Perkins Fund because it's, like I said, it's one of our big ones. But I'm going to show you what it provides money under, so you can see. That's our logo for our school. Josh, that was right there earlier today, he's the one that designed it. So this is, again, going back to the Perkins Fund, it goes through the states and colleges, universities, and high schools, and they provide career and technical education. And so that's the main goal of it. That fire truck over there, we had an old fire truck, and it was donated by the city of Inkster. And so Inkster gave us a fire truck, I don't know how many, 14 years ago when I first started the program. And so through the by and by, we're in Michigan, and it's rusty. It got really rusty, and it broke in half. It just broke and sat right down on the ground. I walked in one morning, I'm like, what in the world happened? It just rusted in half and broke. So there's a few years where we didn't have a fire truck. So I just put my feelers out, and so lo and behold, the Oxford Fire Department, Oxford, Michigan, they had this fire truck, 20,000 miles on it, and they called me up, and I didn't even talk to them directly. I just put my feelers out. Hey, anybody got a fire truck? Give me a fire truck. And so I put the feelers out. So Oxford fire chief and assistant chief called me up, and they go, hey, Cary, we really want, we're trying to sell this fire truck, but we thought that your class could use this more than we could, that it would be worth more for your class than it would be the money we'd get out of it selling it. So they said, would you want it? And I'm like, oh yeah, we'll come get it tomorrow. And we went out and got it, and I'm really happy. We just got this back in May, and it's just a great thing. So whose program? Anybody in here in their program, are they eligible? Do they have the availability to be able to buy a fire truck, a brand new one? You guys did? That's awesome, man. That's great. I'd like to see that. So that's a really good thing. But for the rest of us, that's just a lot of money that we haven't been able to get, out of them yet. But it's just one of the things that, I said yet, but it's one of the things is that, getting a truck that, especially when you see that AFG and it goes out for a vehicle, if anybody in your state gets a vehicle, it's like a unicorn, right? The AFG only gives out about maybe like 2 or 3, it doesn't really figure out to be that they give it to each state like that, but it figures out to be that there's only like $70 million in that fund, every year when it comes up. So that doesn't really fund a whole lot of fire trucks. So if they get a fire truck, again, it's got to either be given to a training academy or disposed of. So call them up and ask them. If you start reaching around to the community fire departments around you and tell you, hey, man, if you guys are thinking about getting a fire truck in the next little while, we buy a fire truck for, $500,000. But we just bought a truck about a little while ago for $800,000. But when you get ready to sell it, what's it worth? Nothing. It's not worth anything. So if they give it to you, that'll be really good because they'll be able to train that next generation of firefighters. It's just a good thing. So just get out there and make sure you beat the band on medical equipment, fire equipment, and all that stuff. That's the low-hanging fruit. So I wish I had brought a picture of our stores, of what we have, of what's been given to us and donated to us. I think we have 200, I don't want to lie to you or mislead you anyway. I think we have let's just put it this way, over 200 sets of turnout gear. We have every SCBA manufactured in the United States, all of them, MSA, Scott, Draeger, all that down the line. We have multiples of all those things so that everybody can become familiar with more and more things. And it's just from fire departments just given to us. And so, you look at SCBA and that's $7,000, but if somebody gives you the SCBA, we can't use it for burns or anything like that, but you can use it for getting comfortable with, learning how to use it on your back and things. So that's just a good thing. So we have that, but we're reaching out this year for, other types of equipment and stuff. So, and again, going back to that training that I did earlier about, your program, if you have a need in your CTE or your fire program or EMS program, don't be afraid to use your own personal Facebook page for it. Anybody that's friends with me in here that's on Facebook with me, if something comes up, I put on there, hey, fire friends, hey, EMS friends, if you got this, we really need one. And you'll be surprised, it's just crazy. They'll just call you up the next day and go, hey, I've got those. You come down, and what'll happen is when you put the word out like that, you won't just get one, you'll get a bunch. So, it's just a good thing to do. So I'd like to take them in, and if any other CTA program needs them, any other fire or EMS program needs them, I'd just give it to them, give it away, because that's what we should do. So I'm not going to hoard stuff when other people could use it. So then it just goes through all this stuff. These are pictures from our training at the college. It's just the other thing is it can be used for research projects. If you're not doing research inside your program, you should be, because there's funding available for it. There's a lot of funding. What we're doing right now is last year, we went down to Atlanta, Georgia, and they made us certified drone pilots. Josh and we became certified drone pilots. And what we're going to do is we're creating this program that's actually in California. It started out there. It's called Drones as a First Responder. So we're using a little bit of technology to be able to bring, the kids that are, technology based to be able to get out there and see that they can help do things inside emergency services. So this is going to be the first year for it. We're going to certify them. We're going to actually not certify them. We're going to get them the training to become FAA 107 drone pilots. Well, here's the thing, how do you start a program like that? How do you, inside your program, how do you do that? How do you come up with, oh my gosh, every one of us would probably want to have a drone program for our educational system, but how do you fund it? Well, simple thing is, right now, there's a grant that's open. It's through the FAA, and it's for pilot training, our mechanics for airlines, our airplanes. But one of the things in there is when you read through that is if you want to have a drone program for your CTE program, for your fire, EMS, or police program, you can go into this FAA grant system and apply for it because it qualifies a drone pilot just the same as a regular pilot because it gets students interested in flying. And so it's good up to $500,000. So $500,000 would be able to fund a drone program over and over again to make sure that they have all the things that they need. So that's just one thing. when I start talking about grants, it's like a big thing for me. Like it's been a life-changing event for me. Grants have been just amazing to me. So how I got started in it is everybody always asks a question. So I'm a cancer survivor. So I got cancer a long time ago, and the first time. I've had it many times. But I got cancer, and so I was out of work for a year and 2 months. They didn't think I was going to live. And so when I came up to the time, the work was wanting me to come into work to make sure that I could maintain my job. So what happened was they gave me a grant. They said, look, we've never been able to get a grant here. We've never been able to do it. We have no idea, what to do or anything like that. So fill this grant out so we can show that you're doing something. Well, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't physically do anything. I couldn't do anything, but I could use my mind. So I started writing this grant, and I got it. And then I got the next one, and the next one, and then the cities around me started calling, and then the rest is history. Detroit called, and then, now everybody calls. It's just continuously calling. But it all started off, for me, I think that it's like, when you look at things and look at your life and look at how things are and how the universe aligns for you, is I think that, for me, I told you in high school, in college, I hated English. I hated it. But then when something comes up like this, I would have never tried grant writing. I would have never tried doing any of that stuff. And so when I got that cancer, I think it was like some type of intervention, right? Like something setting your path for where you needed to be. So it's been amazing. It's been hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, hundreds of millions. And it's just been an amazing thing for me to be able to do it. And I have no idea how, it's just one of those things that I just have a knack for it. It's really good. But if you look at you and you haven't written one grant, or you look at me and I've written thousands of grants and hundreds of millions of dollars, it all starts like with one step, right? So when I first got into this, I wasn't a professional grant writer, right? I didn't even like to write. But then I started writing, and I got to be good at it. And so just try it. It's a real good one. There's a couple grants that are open right now. I'll show you later on when we get in there, is that there's a few grants that are out that are open. But what I want you to think about is in the United States, there are 99,000 grant funders. 99,000 grant funders in the United States. That's crazy, right? That's a lot of money that's sitting out there. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, nobody even applies. So it's just one of the things is that, I do. I'll go after that money like nobody's business. So the way I would always tell them is like it's like a dog going after a T-bone steak. Go ahead.
How do you find them?
That's a good question. So on mine, I have a search engine that I pay money for, right? That I pay a few $100s a month for one search engine just to be able to look for grants. But in your world, like I wouldn't suggest it, right? It's the cost versus benefit ratio is not there. So if you type in like grants for AEDs or grants for this, and you'll be surprised on like they're pretty accurate, and there's a lot of grants that are out there that'll pop up that'll show you where to go, and they'll like if they're like really intensive. Like some of the grants that I filled out a 123-page grant for something before, and that was like too much. But, some of these grants are like really, like the Firehouse Subs grant that's out right now is you can ask up to $35,000, and high school programs are definitely eligible. And so if you have a need around your school for $35,000 or less, start going after that Firehouse Subs grant. Now, they might have closed out in the day or so, because what they do is they open up, and they used to be unlimited number of people could apply for it, but then it went down to like 600, I think, is the cutoff for it now. So as soon as 600 goes in, then they just cut it off. They don't allow another person to apply for it. But they have millions of dollars to give, and these programs are eligible. So that's one. That's just a start. $35,000, not life-changing for anybody, but it'll certainly help, right? It'll certainly do a lot of good. And there's a lot of other ones that are out there, too. I'm going to see how much time I've got. I'm almost in the last part of it. Right? But that's, again, back with Perkins Funds. So if you start tying these little grants together, 35,000, 5,000, 10,000 here, there, oh my goodness, you can add up to have a lot of money. So the one thing that I'm going to go through is, while we're in the last little bit, is I just wanted to show some pictures of like where we're at our trainings at our college where we were in there. So the majority of the money, 64% of it, Perkins Fund goes to secondary education, 36% goes to post-secondary. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. But when you're getting out there and starting to look for these grants, like go after them pretty aggressively, you know, because there's so much money out there. It's just incredible. Did you have a question? I'm sorry. Yeah, I just want to make sure. So there's so much money that's available out there, and so if you're looking for next year, start doing it now, and start doing the programs now that you need. If you have, like, you know, getting involved with a fire department, if you're doing fire-based, you know, education, get with the fire department that's around you and have them apply for a fire prevention grant or anything like that. We used to be, when we had Safety City opened up, that the fire prevention grant said, yeah, we'll definitely give you money to have an educator there to be able to educate the students all the time. It's fire prevention. That's what we do. So we'll give you the money for that. So I don't remember how many thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars it was, but we got it. So what I want to tell you is, I'm just a regular guy. There's nothing special about me at all. And I'm just going to tell you that if there's anything that I can do, you can do it. So go out there and just beat everything that you can to try to get that money in, because you're going to need it. So again, CTE, they can only use under $5,000. It can't be consumables or furniture. What's really cool about this is, anybody see what kind of car that is? A Ford Mach-E. And so Ford generously gave that car to us for us to, you know, cut up. So we brought in, this is the auto class at school. So we brought them in there because guess how many of them had ever seen an electric vehicle? 0. So when we got in there, we let them look at over that car, and then we cut it all up. And if you haven't done EVs, it's a big learning curve. So start looking around for trying to get EV vehicles in so that your students can, like, take them apart and stuff. But you don't have to spend money on it. We didn't go out and buy a $50,000 car. We just called Ford up and asked them, hey, we want to have an EV, and they go, okay, take this one. So we got a couple of them. So it's just a good thing, because Ford Motor Company, all the auto companies, they all have vehicles available for training, right? All of them do. So when you get out of here, go look for them. Go look for those programs. Do those things. You contact me, I'll try to put you in contact with some people that I can help you out with. But, you know, there's sometimes like this year, we had one trivial little fee that they had. We had to get the car towed from, you know, their lot to ours. Big deal. You know what I mean? It was just nothing. So, yes, sir.
You keep mentioning contacting these companies. I'm assuming you're not just calling the general helpline.
No. So when you call, what you want to do is, when you call a different company, when you call them, you always want to talk to their public relations or community relations person, and that's how you ask for money. That's when you ask for help, is you call the community relations person. If I don't tell you anything else, if you don't take anything else out of my topic today, that's a really good thing, because they really all help you out a lot. If they can. If they can't help you, they tell you. They're not gonna pull your leg. They're gonna just tell you straight out, yes, I can help, or no, I can't. So that's a good thing. Down to the last few minutes here. Again, you know, they have, I forgot to put on there that this, you know, I got these pictures off of that Bing free. These are free things, and I forgot to put it on there. But Firehouse subs, we got that, $35,000. Bank of America, every year in, like, I think it's like January or February, they do work-based learning grants, and they're up to like $200,000 sometimes. They're a lot of money. I mean, that's a really good start. So whenever you look at like work-based learning grants, look for those, and your program definitely is work-based learning. So apply, and these grants are not hard. They're pretty straightforward, pretty easy grants to fill out. So those are really good ones to do. That's a big one, that Bank of America, but there's other ones out there. Like when you get to Walmart, and, you know, they have a grant. It's like each store has like I don't know how many thousands of dollars, but they give away $1,000 increments. So what they do is, once they give it to you, they give it to you every year. Like you talk to them once, and they give it to you, and then they give it back to you again. Target has them. You know, Lowe's has a $5,000 grant. They have Home Depot does. What I'm trying to tell you is, every company usually has them, and nobody is using them. And guys like me are just going in and just, you know, just getting as much as we can, you know. And I feel bad about it, because there's a lot of other places out there that really need the help. And so I want to tell you the secret, and that's the secret, is just getting out there and just beating the band and trying to get that money in, because you're going to need it. So there's a whole bunch of other ones that are out there. If you ever have the need, like you were asking about where to search for them, there's a paper that comes out, or a website that's out there. It's called the Chronicles of Philanthropy. And a lot of things that are grants that come out, they list them in there. And so when you get on like a email blast, when grants come out, they let you know. So I'm almost in the last few minutes here, but I just want to tell you one story. And I know we don't like war stories, but I've got to tell you anyway. So the Boys and Girls Club calls me up, and they want me to write a grant for them. There was a grant that came open, and they want me to write a grant. So I come up to them, and I talk to them. I come meet with them and sit down with them and talk to them. And I said, you know, what's the grant? And they tell me, and I asked how much they wanted, how much they were going to apply for. And they said $300,000. And I said, well, why $300,000? What's the maximum? And they said $5 million. And I go, why aren't we applying for the $5 million? Why? And they didn't have a good answer. And so I said, what it's going to be based on is my writing, my grant writing. And so I feel confident I'm going to be able to get it. So let's write for the $5 million. They go, oh, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't feel comfortable with it. And I go, could you use $5 million? And they said, yes, we could definitely use $5 million. I go, do you have a plan for using $5 million? And they said, we can get a plan together. And so what happened is I wrote the grant, and they got $5 million when they were only asking in the beginning for $300,000. So what happened was, with that one grant, is one of the other people that had accepted a grant didn't fulfill their qualifications for the grant. When, like I said, when you're doing grant writing or fundraising or asking for money, it's all old school, like on the playground kind of stuff. I make a promise, I keep it. I tell you I'm going to do this step, this step, this step, and this step. I do those steps automatically, and I don't vary from them because I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want them ever to think about not giving me money. So I just do it. So somebody in that realm that had applied for a grant, they didn't use their money. And so then the grant maker calls them up and said, hey, man, we've got $3 million sitting here, and we've got to get rid of it before the end of the year. Can you use it? So they go, well, yeah. So they wanted $300,000, and we got them $8 million. That's the kind of money that's out there. So just please, I know my time is up, but I just can't tell you guys how much I appreciate you guys coming and listen to me. When we get to the next, I think I already put my slide up there with my contact information. When you're out there doing these grants and doing things like that, I can't answer the phone all the time because I get so many phone calls in a day. But if you ever email me or text me or anything like that and say, hey, I'm caught in a thing, I got a question about this. Some of the grants, when you're filling them out, there's like little caveats in these questions, and if you fill them out one way, they reject them. If you fill them out another way, it could be just a little checkbox, stupid little checkbox, and you might check it the wrong way, and they might turn it down for that. So if you ever have any kinds of questions like that or anything like that, and say, hey, I'm really at this crossroads. I don't know really where to go from here. I don't know whether I can, do this. Email me, and I'll look at it, and I'll tell you, like, go this way or go that way or do whatever, but always, please, don't try to add to or subtract from anything. It just goes back to Dragnet, just the facts. Just don't try to mislead or lie or anything like that on these grants. Just give the facts and do all that stuff, and you're going to be surprised on how successful you are and how much money you're able to get in for your organization. In my fire department, and when I wrote grants for my fire department, I got in more money than our. That's what I always try to do in different fire departments. Is I try to get in as much money as it takes to operate that fire department for a whole year. So that's what I always try to do when I go in to raise money or raise grants for anybody. So you'll be very surprised on how much money you can raise for your own program. But it all starts with you just going out and asking. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your time.